Millionaire visits his ex-wife after 5 years. His one gesture broke her silence. 5 years after walking away. 5 years. 5 years since the polished chrome doors of his penthouse had sealed shut behind him, leaving her standing alone in the echoing marble foyer of a life that felt like someone else's dream. 5 years since the divorce papers, signed with a flourish that felt more like a surrender than a victory, had finalized the end of everything. Now, Marcus Thorne, billionaire tech mogul whose name graced headlines and skyscrapers, stood at the end of a muddy farm track, his Italian loafers sinking slightly into the damp earth. Before him wasn't a mansion but a weathered farmhouse, paint peeling like sunburned skin, surrounded by fields of emerald wheat, swaying under a vast, indifferent sky. And there, kneeling in the dirt, her hands deep in the soil, was Eleanor. She looked real. Sunlight-kissed lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before, etched by wind and worry and honest work, not the stress of boardrooms and charity galas. Her hair, once meticulously coiffed, was pulled back in a simple braid, escaping in wisps around her face. She wore faded overalls, stained with earth and sweat. The quiet strength he remembered, the bedrock that had held his world together during his relentless climb, was still there, but it was different now. Harder, perhaps, forged in solitude and the raw demands of the land. It radiated a peace he'd never known, a peace he'd traded for cold steel and colder numbers. He hadn't planned to come, not really. The guilt had been a constant low hum beneath the roar of his success, a ghost in the gleaming corridors of his empire. He'd heard whispers, through discreet channels, of course, that she'd bought this place, this struggling farm with the settlement he insisted was more than generous. He'd imagined her bitter, broken, living in quiet resentment. Seeing her like this, grounded, alive in a way he'd never seen her before, stole his breath. He cleared his throat, the sound unnaturally loud in the pastoral stillness. "Eleanor." She froze. Slowly, deliberately, she wiped her hands on her overalls and rose. Her eyes, the color of storm-washed slate, met his. There was no anger, no surprise, just a deep, weary calm that felt like a physical barrier. 5 years of silence stretched between them, thick and heavy as the humid air. "Marcus," she said, her voice low, roughened by disuse or perhaps the wind. "What are you doing here?" He shifted, suddenly feeling absurdly out of place, his tailored suit a costume in this world of honest toil. I needed to see you." The words felt inadequate, childish. Why? The single word held oceans of unspoken history, the late nights he'd missed, the birthdays forgotten, the slow erosion of trust as his ambition consumed everything, including her. The final brutal argument where he'd called her stifling, her quiet support suddenly a cage he needed to escape. He had no grand speech prepared. No apology felt big enough to fill the chasm he'd created. Instead, his hand went to the inner pocket of his jacket. He pulled out a small, unassuming wooden box, polished smooth by time and touch. It looked utterly alien against the backdrop of the farm, a relic from the life they'd left behind. He held it out. "I brought you this." Eleanor's gaze flickered from his face to the box, then back. Suspicion warred with a flicker of something else, curiosity, perhaps, or the ghost of the woman who had once loved him unconditionally. She took it, her calloused hands brushing his for a fleeting, electric second. The contact sent a jolt through him, a reminder of a warmth he'd foolishly discarded. She opened the box. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, wasn't jewelry or cash. It was a jumble of keys, old, tarnished keys, a heavy brass skeleton key, a small, delicate silver one, a chunky modern electronic fob, dozens of them, each unique, each whispering a story. What is this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper now, her eyes fixed on the strange collection. Marcus took a deep breath, the scent of earth and growing things filling his lungs. "The brass one," he said, his voice thick with emotion he couldn't suppress. "It opens the gate to the rose garden at the old estate. The one you planted." The silver one, it's for the music room, where you used to play piano when you thought no one was listening." He pointed to the fob. "That's for the penthouse garage. But it's not just those." He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers, pleading for her to understand. "Eleanor, after you left, after I drove you away, I started collecting them. Every key I found that felt significant. The key to my first tiny apartment where we ate ramen for a month. The key to the cabin where we got caught in that storm and laughed for hours. The key to the storage unit where I kept your old sketchbooks. I couldn't bring myself to throw them out." His voice cracked. "I collected keys to every door I slammed shut on us, every opportunity I missed to choose you over the next deal, the next acquisition." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes, blurring the tarnished metal. She saw not just keys, but fragments of their shared history, moments of tenderness and ordinary joy he'd clearly remembered, cherished even in his absence. "I'd kept them," Marcus continued, his own eyes glistening, "because I realized I locked myself out of the only thing that ever truly mattered. I locked you out, and I've been lost ever since." He gestured helplessly at the box. I don't deserve anything. Not forgiveness, not another chance, but I needed you to know. I needed you to see that I finally understand what I threw away. These keys, they're not for doors anymore. They're just reminders of you, of what real life looks like." He looked around at her farm, at her strong, capable hands, at the peace in her eyes. "You built something real here, Eleanor. Something beautiful. And I just wanted to give you back the pieces of the life I broke." Silence descended again, but it was different now, thinner, charged with the raw vulnerability hanging in the air. The rigid wall around Eleanor seemed to soften just a fraction. She looked down at the box of keys, then back at Marcus, not the billionaire, but the broken man standing before her, finally seeing her, finally seeing them. A single tear traced a path through the dust on her cheek. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Instead, she reached out, not for the box, but for his hand. Her calloused palm closed over his smooth one, warm and strong. The simple, human contact after 5 years of silence and distance was more powerful than any words. In that touch, in the quiet understanding passing between them, amidst the rustling wheat, the silence wasn't just broken. It was transformed. It became a space not of absence, but of possibility. A space where regret could finally meet grace, and where the first fragile seed of healing might just take root in the fertile ground of forgiveness. The keys lay forgotten in the box for a moment, no longer symbols of locked doors, but perhaps, just perhaps, the first tools to build something new. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, share, and subscribe to ACA Storytales for more emotional stories. Your support helps us spread hope to millions. Thanks for watching.